Just a second, get started. If you don't, it'll play in the background once we're meeting, and it gives us great.
I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of November 24 of the City of Philomath City Council. This is the continuation of our session, which ran from 9:30 to 6:55, more or less.
Diane Crocker.
Here.
Jessica Andrade.
Present.
Teresa Nielsen.
Here.
Christopher McMorrin.
Here.
Ruth Causey.
Here. Thank you very much. And I would like to say that I found this packet to be outstanding. There's lots of colorful stuff and interesting information. Well put together. Do we have any public comments? Okay. And agenda, which includes the minutes of October 14th and October 20th.
I'd like to move the October 28th minute. I apologize, I have a version and didn't get to send the email out before the meeting.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 14th?
You want the other one first, so then you can just do the one amended.
The 14th and the 28th is what she's saying, right?
Yeah, but I removed the, sorry, never mind.
So can I move to approve the minutes for October 14th?
Thank you. Do I have a second? Motion by Councillor Nielsen, seconded by Councillor Crocker. Any comments or discussion? Please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right. Before we get to your points, Councillor, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 28th?
Move.
Motion by Councillor Crocker, seconded by Councillor Nielsen. Discussion. Councillor Andrade.
I move to amend line. Okay. Let me just tell you these first. I think the first one might be Scrivener's, line 48 on the first page. Is just delete discussed at the end. Discussion about request amounts and available amount discussed. Does that sound good as being Scrivener's?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And then, so the motion is to line 49 of the first page to add, I guess, a bullet saying discussion about recently approved Frolic and Rodeo Parade float policy.
Do that again?
Sorry. Discussion about recently approved Frolic and Rodeo Parade float policy.
Did you, sorry, was that in addition to?
Add it, yeah.
So like it would be below line 48?
Yeah, it would be
Okay.
like 49 or whatever.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And I'll just speak to that saying that in the minutes from the previous meeting, there's a bullet on there that discusses the opposition to fund being uncomfortable with the Frolic and Rodeo's press release. So it was talked again in this to recognize that they did a cool thing. So I think that it should be there. We talked about it. It was important. It's the reason why I voted that way.
If I may make a suggestion, my recollection is that it was noted that the policy had been posted. And Chris just described it briefly. I'm not sure there was much of a discussion.
That's fine.
You might want to just note recently approved Frolic and Rodeo policy.
I think that's a better description as far as what was actually occurred, possibly.
I mean, I responded, so I think that makes it a discussion, but I don't really care. I don't know. Councilman Moore knows it.
I'm good. I don't really care.
So, are you trying to say to change it to noted?
Yeah.
Recently approved Frolic and Rodeo parade float policy? That works for me.
Thank you.
Could we say counselor on drive, just because I feel like it's weird to say notate.
Action minutes, we're really trying not to assign specific lines that are said by specific and be very general in action minutes.
Oh, okay, I was just looking at the line right above it. But, all right.
Other than me, of course.
I mean, that's fine. I was just trying to keep it consistent, but if we don't want to do that, that's fine.
We're trying to keep it as
Okay.
minimal as we can, without like saying
Okay,
presented or.
sure.
So you got that?
Now, final wording, we're replacing discussion with.
Noted.
Yeah. Just noted recently approved Frolic and Rodeo parade float policy.
Do we need to second that amendment?
Still happy with that.
Sure, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? The amendment, I think I can say, of approving the minutes of October 28th as amended.
I have a question that I'm not sure if this is a Scrivener's or not. On the next page, line 28, 29, there's a bullet point recommended to discuss future fees and consistency of honorariums for future discussion. I feel like it was, to be more specific, it was for a future inclusivity committee meeting. So does that count as a Scrivener, or do you need a motion for that?
I do a motion to amend.
Then I would like to make a
I have a
motion.
motion on the table already.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right, thank you. So then we would vote on the amendment and then make another motion for an amendment. Got it, thank you.
All those in favor of amending the October 28th minutes, line 49, page 1, as described, please raise your hand. It's a guy.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
And I'd like to move that on lines 28 to 29 of the second page of the minute to replace the word discussion with inclusivity committee meeting.
So it would read recommended to discuss speaker fees and consistency of honorariums for a future inclusivity committee.
And for the sake of discussion, I will, if I can speak to that, unless if you want to speak to it.
Oh, yeah, I was just, like, we had talked about it as potentially going there, but I mean,
I guess.
or I guess we could just put committee meeting.
Right.
Because finance and admin
that
would
was
also
kinda
want to
my
talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. So, can I amend the motion to read recommended to discuss speaker fees and consistency of honorariums for a future committee meeting?
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of amending the October 28th?
So amended the motion first.
Can you restate that, please?
Yes. Recommended to discuss speaker fees and consistency of honorariums for a future committee meeting.
Who was the second on that?
Me.
Councilor Andrade.
Vote on the amendment to the motion first.
All in favor of the amendment? Please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I believe that now.
All in favor of the amendment now. We're close. Gotta go back up the ladder.
All in favor of the amendment to the minutes of October 28th? Please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All in favor of approving minutes as amended?
Sorry. Aye.
Carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. I know that many of you have time constraints, but if you can, we see it through those areas.
Yeah.
For sure.
Our next topic item is a bank signatory authorization. Chelsea?
Yes, this one's pretty straightforward. It does fall into the finance department generally. However, with the onboarding of the new city recorder, I'm trying to help other departments get things set up. One of those things is that with Ruth Post leaving, we are, as of Thursday, down a bank signer. So we would like to add Crystal Weber as a replacement for bank signer. So that, just so you all know, is typically the purpose of that is signing checks that we need to sign. We have to have multiple signers on checks. And it, as you can imagine, can create issues. City manager and I are at some city manager conference together, and we only have one person left. We're in a pickle. So that's the purpose of it. Anyone has any questions?
I would move to add city recorders to Crystal Weber as the signatory for Citizens Bank.
A second.
Motion by Councilor Crocker, seconded by Councilor Andrade. All those in, any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Let's avoid those pickles. Okay. Next item of discussion is the utility rate statement of view. And this is yours.
Mike was trying to join. I think he's joined on, but we're gonna double check here.
I'm here.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Are you ready? I'll go ahead and take over, Ruth.
Yes,
In front of
please.
you have the state. Are you? Okay. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. Y'all, the council has the utility rate study, the statement of work. It's the main component of the RFP. The rest of the RFP is administrative and pretty much standardized. We can't change it. This is the part that we can make the changes. Statement of work is gonna, we've got 5 items that we want to have done. They're gonna have 9 tasks to complete to get those 5 items. The biggest thing that you're going to get out of this is a rate schedule, 5-year rate schedule, and a 10-year plan. The rate schedule is going to be a subset of the financial plan. And then we're going to distinguish, we don't want to set the classes right now. We're going to analyze the customer classes and see what kind of classes we have. And then from all that, we're going to, we'll get, like I said, we'll get the 5 items. Then we set up, that's the scope of work. Timeline requirements set up. We're going to hopefully have this done before we start the 25-26 budget. And then we'll put the report in. The next step is the reporting communication segment. That's where the line of communication is set up. Basically, we've given it to you for your review and any comments that you'd like. I'm going to open it up for questions.
Counselor Coker.
Just one, you had said you were projecting rates for 5 years, but in here it says 10 years.
Right, we're going to have a
Or 5 years.
financial plan. And then of that, we'll get a subset. We'll get the rate schedule for 5 years. After that, the rates will be redone. We'll be able to, we're going to have as also part of the statement of work, they're supposed to give us a spreadsheet that we can do analysis. So we'll be able to take that rate schedule after 5 years and update it.
Counselor Andrade.
Thank you. I'm really glad that we're looking at, having them build a tool for us to be able to make changes, because it is very inconvenient to constantly have these studies done and not be able to take into account new infrastructure that we need when we need it. But I had a question about the statement of work rate workshop that's with the city council and city staff.
Okay.
Is that what exactly does that entail? Is that talking about the different policies and stuff that are laid out in these tasks that we want them to incorporate into their work, or is it something completely different?
Be kind of a meet and greet. It's kind of they'll do a meet and greet, and then they'll talk to you more about the statement of work. And if they have any questions on any of it, they'll run it by you. And they're basically just going to talk to council to get any other ideas that you want to look at. But big thing is going to be like a kind of a meet and greet. So, and then they're going to show you what they're going to do. And I think go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry. So then, like, if the council decides that we want to incentivize water conservation or something like that, then that would be the place to discuss that.
Sure.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Is there something specific you're looking for besides an approval? Is something what is it that you're potentially looking for to have edited?
Well, what we wanted to do is we wanted to give y'all the statement of work to see if we've covered everything that the council can think of. We think we've got everything covered. And we promised you that we'd give you this look-see before we put it out on the streets.
I appreciate that. Thank you. On that note, I will. Oh, there's no motions. Never mind.
Yeah, if there's no changes or additions, we'll just proceed with Mike getting the RFP out, and then we'll start getting responses in.
Question, would the item that Councilor Andrade brought up about considering and incentivizing water conservation, would that be beneficial for the consultant to know as they're forming this document? I mean, as they're going for the tasks required, rather than making it a known at a town hall or a council meeting, is what I'm saying. Should it be something we should be more proactive on in regards to tasking it?
Heads up.
Sorry, by not trying to step in.
Oh, no. I appreciate that question. So thank you.
That's a good question, Counselor Nielsen. Um, I'm just looking at where I can put that thought in my task. Because when you start getting specific, you tie down your statement of work.
That's number 5, Mike. I'd go all
What's
the way
that?
down. Task number 5, you talk about projected demands, water supply, capital improvement requirements. It might fit into that list.
Say water conservation?
Incentivizing it.
Maybe water supply, incentives for water conservation, and capital improvement requirements.
Say, okay, write that down and I'll get it from you tomorrow. I can hear you, but I don't want to put it in the wrong spot.
I think
Because
typically
that probably
water,
will work there.
Yeah, and on that note, then I'll also just bring up the idea of charging industry and commercial usage different from domestic, potentially something we might want to consider.
Don't we have,
Do we?
we have changed, different rates based on different classes of
Oh,
users or something?
I missed that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just thinking about high water. I guess that also kind of gets incorporated.
Where it is.
Cool. Okay.
The biggest thing that I really want out of this is task 7. That's the 10-year, that's the tool that they can provide. Because I had that in Newport and it's a really good tool to have. Anything else? Any other questions?
Counselor Nielsen.
The consultant, who is that person that will be considered as a consultant in this case?
Oh boy. There's quite a few consultants out there. There's a couple that Chris is familiar with, and a couple that I'm familiar with. So I think the one that I used in Newport was called FCS Group. But I know there's 3 others out there. 2 of them are nationwide, and FCS Group is out of Seattle. But I think they're nationwide too. I'm not sure, but there's like 4 groups. And so we're going to, well, of course, advertise it through the Daily Journal of Commerce, and then we'll probably send to these straight 4. And I think Chris had another one from his ICMA group. So I think there may be 5 that I'm send out to individuals.
And how is that consultant selected?
We will have an RFP. They will have to submit a proposal to the city. And I was probably going to ask you to be on the group. So to review the RFPs like you did for the auditor. So yeah, there'll be a group of us doing that.
It's actually Diane Crocker asking those questions.
Oh, that'll be good. She can do it too.
Just kidding.
How long will this take? Can we put jazz on it?
Anything else?
No, I don't believe so. Thank you, Mike.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the 19th Street Water and Sewer Improvements. Here is this.
Yes.
Oh, yes. My gosh.
Hi, Kevin.
Star.
Hello. How is everybody? Good, probably real good since I'm not there and you just have to look at me, which is probably bad enough, but hey, we gotta take the good with the bad sometimes, right?
We're good.
I'm just here to talk about the South 19th Water and Sewer Improvement Project. you have the AIS there in front of you, which I had to write. I tried to convince the new city recorder that that was part of her job, was to write my AISs for me, and somebody ratted me out on that, so I had to write it myself again. So,
Let's try, Kevin.
hey, you got to try. I mean, things don't happen unless you try. So, if you guys recall, Benton County's going to be resurfacing South 19th, well, North and South 19th Street this summer. So we had to kind of do an off-season sewer water replacement to get out ahead of them. And you have that before you. Mid-Valley Gravel was our low bidder. Again, they will be doing this project, which they did very well for us on the 16th Street extension and the 16th, 17th, and 18th Street sewers. So we're kind of excited to see that. Came in under bid. We were well budgeted for it, under budget. It's surprising with the costs going into the winter time, doing deep sewers and that sort of stuff is usually a lot more work for a contractor. So the pricing was surprising and more than fair. So just have it before you. There's a letter from West Tech Engineering, the engineer that the design engineer, and his recommendation to award it to Mid Valley. So that's pretty much all I have, unless somebody has any other questions. Wow. Okay. You guys can wrestle it out on who gets to ask first. I saw both hands at the same time, so I'm not gonna make that call.
Thank you. I was curious. I tried to read what I'm guessing alt is alternate, A and B, like what those entailed. And I don't really know what it is. Can you kind of summarize what each? It looks like B might be like a bunch of cleanup related thing, making things look pretty and be more like stable and stuff. But I'm not sure. Can you
Sure.
explain like what that kind of entails and what insert ATs after CIPP liners installed means?
Yes.
Or alternate?
There's two options for sewer services. They don't excavate the sewer main, but they replace all of the sewer laterals from the main to the property line. Those are put into the main line with a inserted T fitting. So the base bid was for the contractor to install those after the liner was in, which means they've got to dig the road back up again, bust the concrete off of the CIPP liner and put a inserted T fitting in. The alternate B is if the city opts to have them put the inserted T through the concrete pipe, line it, and then the lining contractor goes through with his saw on a camera, and they video it, cut out the liner to reestablish the sewer connection. So it's just kind of a difference on which way we want to go. And alternate B would be, or I'm sorry, alternate A would be a subtraction from the base bid on that item.
Okay, thank you. So then that means that we would need to amend the motion, right?
No, it was written in there that we're having a meeting Thursday, I think, with the contractor and the CIPP lining company to kind of discuss which way is the best way to do it and more reliable, because it's been done both ways. So we're gonna meet there and then decide whether or not removing the Alt A portion is better for us or leaving it in.
I misunderstood what you had said. Thank you.
And
So
Alt
then
B. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. So I was just gonna say, so then it would be the contract would be up to $1,598,232.65. Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
Uh-huh. And then Alt B is, I finally, after all these years, figured out how to move the two sewer lines, or the last two sewer lines on Main Street that are between 16th and 18th, out of there. They're both failed, been failed for several years. We can't get a camera down them, we can't get a cleaner down them, so we're just kind of waiting on trouble there, but we figured out a way of getting them backlot fed. And so alternate B was the addition of doing 17th Street, so we can pull a couple of main lines off down an alleyway and reconnect those other houses. So it's basically another 1952 sewer replacement project, just a short one. And that's what Alt B was. So, and that's all figured into the 1,598, 232 price.
Cool. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Counselor Crocker.
Two questions. Is this gonna tear up the road? It sounds like yes. Do you have a time frame for how long?
There's not as many services that we're doing this time. I'd have more information probably after Thursday. It will tear up. There'll be several, well, actually not a whole lot of sewer line crossings, but we will have water line on the east side of the street going in. So there'll be some water services going east and west. We hope to get started in early December. So that area probably maybe February-ish, March.
And will water be disrupted to any of the homes, and for how long? I mean, like maybe for a day? Will they not have water, or less than that, or more than that?
No, we never, I can't say never. We try very hard to limit outages to 4 hours. So the contractor, on any time the line gets shut down to do a tie-in to a live service, they're required to have everything assembled, bolted together, and ready to do so. When we get the water shut off, they cut the existing pipes, 2 or 3 or 4, however many are going into that tie-in, drop the completed piece in, bolt up the pieces, and get it turned on, and we can get it flushed and back tees taken and get them back in water. They'll be under a boil water notice for 24 hours, but they should only be out of water for 4 hours maybe.
Thank you. I get questions every time something starts up, and so it's good if I know answers. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions for Kevin? Council award the 2024 19th Street Water and Sewer Improvement Project to Mid-Valley Gravel.
I'll second it enthusiastically.
Any other comments or discussion? Yes, Councilor Dodd.
Do we not need the amounts, including the contingency? No? Okay. Just wanted to check on that.
All in favor of awarding the project to Mid-Valley Gravel, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
And for you, when was the last time you saw a bid under the estimate?
We've only really had this last one, 16th extension and 16th and 17th that was over the estimate that I can remember. It's been pretty good during the bidding just went crazy and pricing and everything went crazy back when we started 16th extension. So just one of those things. It's kind of, they say it's now kind of leveling off.
Been a long time to me.
Yes. One other point, if I may, on a different subject. Do I have permission for the speak to that?
Yes,
Thank you.
we regret it.
Oh, I could go so many places with that. You set me up for it to do it. And the generator for Starlight Village, Starlight, and I think Councilor Causey, I guess President Causey at this meeting should have gotten a letter saying you'll probably be out of water and power for 4 to 6 hours tomorrow or Thursday.
Shower, sleep, Kevin.
Yes, we've got that. Once that's done, we can get the Cummins diesel person on site, usually within 2 or 3 days, they say. So we hope to have the generator up and running, I hope by the end of next week.
So does that mean you found the outlet to plug it into?
No, that means that little cardboard box that we put out there to fool you is finally a real reality. It's the actual generator now instead of that.
Exercise bikes. The wheels are going.
Yep.
I just say,
take 3-hour shifts.
I know this took a while, but my props to Kevin for, I feel like it's kind of poetic that this is finally going in to coincide with the end of Easter. She can ride off into the sunset now. So, thank you.
Good news.
Yes.
We can postpone it if you'd like. I mean, however you feel about it. I've been tormenting her since we ordered the thing, and I mean, it was right at 52 weeks, 53 weeks, I think, from the time I ordered it to the time it touched down in our yard and we were able to get it set. And I pretty much tormented her all 53 weeks with it. So it'll be nice to get it going, and it is a nice parting gift.
Thank you, Kevin. I've never had anything like it.
However, I am referring any noise complaints with the generator running when the power is out to you, so.
What are friends? All right. Can you cut that off? Our next topic is the city council vacancy.
See you, Kevin.
Sweetie.
Bye.
Should have said this on the agenda item summary. Attached is Councilor Matt Williams' resignation effective November 6th. As you can see, he's resigned from the city council for good reasons. He's got a new career opportunity. Probably see Matt in other forums, which is great news. He's not going away, just changing his roles. So I have included just the charter language about the vacancy. Our process is that we release a press release. There's a press release attached that we intend to put out tomorrow to just open up that application period. There is no necessary action that we've done in the past. Has followed the same format that we did the last time this happened, which was a while ago. But if there's already comments or questions about the process, feel free to ask us.
Two questions. One, on the press release, the language talks about election, but would be an appointment. Should that be changed to an appointment?
Which paragraph?
It's the first bullet point on the eligibility requirements to serve on the city council are
appointment.
Just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like back calculating or anything like that. And then, regarding that in an election, since we're now on 4-year terms, would it be something that council could consider to like have it be until the next available election? Like, can we have a spring election?
I think we have to finish out Matt's, but since Ruth Post is still here, let's ask her for her expert
That'd be
opinion.
something that our charter would need to speak to. Our charter is silent,
Yeah.
and so that makes the, that puts it in the council's, wheelhouse to make an appointment.
So then would we, because I'm not quite clear what things we can and cannot waive, because there are sometimes, like we waive the, additional, like when committee members want to continue on a certain committee, but we don't have enough applicants, the council has the ability to waive their, if they've been on it for too long or whatever, like we can reappoint them. And so I wasn't sure if that was something we could potentially waive to have it be more, I don't know what the deadlines are and stuff on a state level to be able to have like an election at a, that we weren't necessarily planning at the time. I know there's a lot of things to consider, so.
Councilman Moran.
It does say in our agenda item summary and the quote from the city charter that the appointee's term of office begins immediately on appointment and continues throughout the unexpired term of the predecessor. So it feels like it would be hard to find a way to interpret that.
Actually,
Is that not?
I want to restate what it said.
Okay.
The charter is not completely silent. It clearly says filling a vacancy is a duty of the remaining members of the council. So, you would need to change the charter.
Okay. And
To say, no, we don't want to make that decision. We're going to defer it to the next election.
then to clarify for the charter, like it would have to say that the council has the right to like waive a rule in order for that to be waived, correct? Like we can't just say, oh, we're gonna waive that this time around because it's the charter. Like there has to be a special provision that says that, like for the committees of like the council can waive. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Wasn't sure if there were.
Or if it didn't say anything, then you can interpret it. So, yeah.
Either way, I would recommend getting the city attorney involved.
Yeah.
Something that you want to
Yeah.
proceed with asking actual technical questions.
Cool. Just since, like I said, we're now in 4-year terms, so.
Sure.
Thank you.
Two things. I see the deadline for the application. So the next council would actually be the one selecting the replacement, right? Okay. And do we have a time, like, we kind of do that at the first council meeting of the year, do you think? Or?
I think that we potentially would have time to turn that around. Because that first meeting in January is a little bit later in January, I think.
Right.
I think that's usually the.
That first meeting in
You
January.
want to get it filled as soon as.
Yes, I mean, there's two things. Will we get enough applicants trying to leave enough time?
Right.
Get enough applicants, that people have time to respond, but then also after that, we would want to try to turn it around.
Right. No, and I'm advocating for.
You're advocating for that.
As possible, yeah. I agree. Well, and Councilman Andrade just mentioned, I just also in terms of committee appointments and everything, which we usually do at that first meeting of the year.
Sure.
I guess we could just appoint like unnamed counselor 6 to the committee.
So, I think the intention was, that was a Monday, and that we would be able to get that in the packet that would be being made, although that's a weird week with New Year's, but, that we would try to get those in the packet
Okay.
for that meeting. I think that's what we.
Okay. And then the last thing, and I don't know if we're sending out the Matt's letter with the press release? If not, or maybe either way, I just wonder if it might be worth adding something on the first paragraph there, just saying like the resignation of Counselor Matt Lehman due to a new employment opportunity. Just I feel like people would be like, why did he resign?
Sure.
You know, I'd rather fend off any rumor mill.
Yeah, I would say that that's fine because he does have that in his.
Right.
email.
Yeah.
That's public record, so yes.
Just also to do a favor to him, so everyone.
Sure, so people don't all call
What
him.
kind of scandal did he get himself in?
No, that's actually.
And Jessica, just in response, the bullet point, that does come directly from the charter, sort of, like, I mean, it's a more, but it is from the charter, but we'll try to make that clearer just in this specific instance, because it is a little.
And by election, that's it.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Alrighty, the next item on our agenda is ordinance number 887.
So this is the first reading for City of Philomath ordinance number 887. An ordinance of the City of Philomath imposing reasonable time rates and manner regulations on the operation of psilocybin product manufacturers and psilocybin service centers. Staff did take a look. Ashley and I went through, made the changes that the city council had identified at the last meeting. And so some of that language is there. Specifically, there's some conversation about, I think it's on page 4, location. We added a section, number 4, within 1,000 feet of any school or care facility that predominantly serves children. There were a couple other little things here and there, but that was kind of the only real substantial change that we made that we were directed to do. So other than that, it's open if there's other amendments at this time, and then when you're ready, we can do a roll call vote.
Counselor Carpenter.
On page 3, C, it says hours of operation operating from 8 to 10. It was my understanding as studying this that some of the trips that people take last longer than that, and that they would be staying overnight in the facility, and this does not allow that.
Correct.
So should we change that?
I need to start sooner and be done by 10.
Is this the
But if it's a 24-hour
This
trip,
is,
that's
this is
not going to
city.
cover it.
Change that if we wanted to.
That's what I'm saying. If we're,
Right.
yeah, we need to. Otherwise, they'll be released early before they're ready. And that's not good either.
One comment. In researching service centers in Oregon, like the one in Eugene and in Portland, some do not offer overnight stays, so that's not a universal. From what I've read, just to clarify, there are some that do not have that as an option in their treatment centers, and so I think we're safe somewhat in knowing that when they asked for that, would they not have to in their permitting say if they would need that overnight or not?
Well, I think each individual would experience a psychedelic trip in a different manner, and some might take 4 hours and some might take 2 days. And so for us to say, it's 10 o'clock, you gotta leave, I know you're having a rough time right now, but get on out, that doesn't seem reasonable unless they do the dosing so that it's such a small dose that they won't have a full-on trip. But the cost of this is so high that I can't imagine somebody not wanting the full experience.
To that point, I trust that the doctors know what they're doing, and that whatever prescription or treatment that is, that that there are safeguards in place. And I think this is fine as is if there are other, service centers that aren't open 24 hours. I mean, like, I don't know enough about this, but from just knowing the little that I do, like, I don't think this prohibits, I don't think this functionally like bans them the way that our cannabis time, place, manner do. And I'm sure there are safety precautions put in place. Proctor.
You mentioned doctors. There are no doctors involved in this. And
In order to prescribe them to get,
no, they don't need a prescription from a doctor.
or what?
And there are some community members that think that they do. They think it's doctors that are going to be administering this, and it's not.
I'm not saying administering. I'm saying like referring them to.
They don't need a referral. Seriously. Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct.
They just walk in and say, I would like an appointment. They have an appointment with the facilitator, who is at least 21 years of age, has a high school diploma, and has had 40 hours of training. In that training is $7,000 to $12,000. So not everybody's going to sign up to do that. And right now they're not making money at it. So it's, I mean, this all could be a moot point because they're not making money. But it is absolutely, doesn't have a doctor involved.
Counselor Moran.
Chris, what is, so if you said we were gonna do a roll call on it tonight. I know it says in here, should the voters reject blah, blah, blah. But, so are we voting on psilocybin is amended? Like this chapter is amended and reads as follows? That's what it says here in the therefore. So I guess I'm just gonna, like, I thought we were approving, like, this is what would, sorry, I'll be quiet.
These are the time, place, matter restrictions that would be in place if the voters reject the permanent ban.
So, is there a reason it doesn't say that on, like, I'm no lawyer, like, why doesn't it say that in section 1 of, like, section 1, should be voted, blah, 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 chapter 9.30, psilocybin is amended and read. Like, it's just like if I read this and we passed it tonight, it doesn't say like effective blank or something, it just says it's amended.
So I think the intent was that these time, place, matter restrictions would be in place upon approval. They're not gonna be effective if there's a temporary or permanent ban. They'd still be there, so I guess to your point, I partially answered most of your question. They'll be in place whether if the ban isn't approved, they'll also be in place if the ban is approved, right? So these are just gonna go on the record as time, place, matter restrictions for psilocybin facilities and centers. If there's a temporary to permanent ban, then they'll just be moot. If there's a temporary ban until the voters vote and the voters don't approve of the continuation of the ban, and then maybe we would have these time, place, matter restrictions already in place.
So we'll simultaneously have time, place, manner restrictions and a ban?
Correct.
It's in the books, but
Right, no, I get that, it's weird, but okay. Yeah.
Counselor.
I had another question on page 5, line 23. It talks about, or any place where marijuana is kept. Is that really what it meant? Doesn't make sense. It's just out of blue to me. It seems like maybe they meant psilocybin.
Where are you? Can you repeat that?
Page 5, line 23. Distributor given away in violation of state law or this chapter or any place where marijuana is possessed. That doesn't seem like that.
The mixing of it.
Yeah, but it does. That's the only place it mentions marijuana.
Yeah, it
And
does feel like
Let's feel.
I think it's
Could we check on that to see?
adopting the language and they just forgot to change that word, is what it sounds like to me.
Christopher, Chris, could we check on that to see if that is just a mistake, or is that marijuana intentionally there because of the manner in which psilocybin is handled? Or manufactured, or?
We could check on it timing wise though. I'd go ahead and make a motion to change that to psilocybin. And check with Ashley if that gets approved, and then if this comes back, we can have a second vote and we'll confirm at that point. But for purposes of getting a first vote tonight, I think we just, if somebody wants to make the motion, Councilor Crawford,
And I'll second it.
I wonder if, because the wording here is virtually duplicative,
Yes.
I wonder if it is, if marijuana is intentional.
It appears that it's
They don't-
intentional.
Psilocybin is to be sold.
We should look, but it just is odd that it doesn't mention it anywhere else. And that's the only place it's a problem if it's.
net for psilocybin, and then I can confirm with Ashley.
You need to vote on that.
Yes. All in favor of making a change to psilocybin on 19, page 5, please raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We do with Andrade and McMorrin opposed. Did you get the motion in a second?
Should turn out if you check with council and find out.
Change it back at the next meeting.
Notes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Andrade.
Thank you for the information, Counselor Crocker, about the whole not needing a prescription or a referral or anything. Regardless, going back to that hours of operation, like if there are other places that are doing that and they're not having any issues, then I think this should be fine and we can address it at a later time if need be. If we even get any, if the ban gets rejected, like, you know. And then also, I just wanted to talk about the Ordinance 888, that 6th whereas clause. I just wanted to check in with council because the minutes from that last meeting had said to change the whereas to the Philomath City Council believes that until such time the people of Philomath can voice their opinion by vote, continuing to prohibit psilocybin, et cetera, and was wondering if you're okay with this or if you wanted to change the on a permanent ban to by vote. So then it would be like, whereas the Philomath City Council believes that until the electorate is able to provide direction by vote, continuing to prohibit psilocybin product manufacturers, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a question to the council as opposed to a motion, to clarify.
I think what you're saying is the language is not exactly as you left the last meeting.
Yeah, and I just,
But may have been recommended by the attorney, Chris?
This is what Ashley and I came up with after reviewing that maybe a couple times. I think this was what we felt was the intent or clearly stated. But we can look at it again.
Because electorate, dictionary term means all the people in the country or area are entitled to vote in an election. So it's saying in a more eloquent way that all people believes that until the electorate, all people in that entitled area are able to provide. So it is saying vote.
yeah, I guess my concern more had to do with on a permanent ban, because I guess on whether I don't know, something feels weird about it, and I just wasn't sure. So I thought I'd ask.
Okay, no, I'll just try.
I'm good either way.
If everyone's fine with it, that's cool. And then the last thing was that on the ballot information, there's a scrivener's error, I think, it looks like it, in the last section of that first page. It says, there's a comma between ordinance 887 and these regulations would, and that should be a period. And then,
Sorry, Councilman, are you looking at the ballot title itself?
yeah, or no, not the title, the
bottom.
last section of the page, the ballot information page.
Like the second post.
Yeah. Where it says, if denied, psilocybin related businesses would be allowed to operate within the city. And then I wonder if it would make more sense to say, if denied, psilocybin related businesses would be allowed to operate within the city with reasonable time, place, and manner regulations that would immediately become operative as further provided in Ordinance 887. Just because the "and" part kind of disconnects the time, place, manner regulations from the allowed to operate within the city, and I'm concerned that people might not necessarily understand. I mean, I wouldn't, prior to council, I wouldn't have known what time, place, and manner regulations were, and so I just, seeing the "and" makes it seem like they're kind of divorced from each other as opposed to what they really are, which is intertwined. And so on that note, I will make a motion to amend that sentence so that it reads.
Sorry, just before you go, so on the ballot title, that's connected to ordinance 888, not 887.
That's also good to know, thank you.
I think we want to stick with just amendments to 887 first, then we'll look at 888 separately. But noted, but let's just come back to that.
No, isn't it 888?
We're just considering 887 right now.
Oh, gotcha.
And I'd like to make a motion to amend item A on page 4 to include the following item 5, within 1,000 feet of any public library. Okay, my thinking on this is as follows. Our library is very busy with children, and I think the remodeling is going to be even more busy with children. So I think it's appropriate to have these facilities away from the library. And with respect to public parks, as a parent, and as a woman, if you are in a park with small children, if you've taken small children to a park, deployment is a big deal. You usually have a lot of stuff. And if someone undesirable should approach you or anyway, make inappropriate approaches to you, you may not have help. And I think our primary responsibility is, as counselors, is public safety. And I don't think it's inappropriate to ask these facilities to be located away from parks. Counselor Nielsen.
I had a phone call this afternoon from a constituent. I'm a resident in our city, and her specific point was She moved from another state when her husband received a job offer in Corvallis. And they specifically moved to Philomath because they found it very family friendly, that they could, with their young children, basically walk anywhere in town and feel very safe and feel that it was an environment that they found very attractive for their young children, and the freedom that they felt to meander wherever they would like in town and feel confident that it was a family focused, family centered town with good family values. Not that psilocybin centers are not family centered, but her point was that she would feel very uncomfortable if she were to have to walk with her children in a now more pedestrian friendly town and have to have her children walk past certain sites. And so I addressed her, how would you feel about parks and library in regards to psilocybin centers, asking her opinion. And her opinion was any place that I would be likely to take my children walking from my home to that location, I would prefer not to have to walk by a psilocybin center with my young children. And that was her point of view. And so I'm just sharing that with us tonight because that was a phone conversation I had this afternoon with recently relocated family to our town within the last few years. She's moved into one of our new housing areas in Philomath.
Counselor McMorrin.
Two things, I think. The first is with regards to your concerns, Councillor Kazi. I guess I'm just wondering if you can expand on that a little more, because if my understanding is correct, and I know I maybe know less about some of the details than other councillors, but no one is like going to these centers and then leaving under the influence. So I guess I'm just curious where you think these people who are, we even heard that from the police chief at our last meeting, right? I mean, he said that he did not see that there would be any public safety impacts as long as
the rules were followed.
well, so I mean, but is there just rules? I mean, I think if I just, so I mean, I guess just to clarify, then, is what you're saying that you think these centers would not follow the rules and would blatantly let people out onto the streets under the influence? Because that's what it.
No, I'm not
Okay.
saying that, but I don't think that a center can hold someone there any more than a hospital can hold a patient there. You have the right to leave. So if someone decides to leave, I think it's better if that facility is away from parks and libraries.
And can I just interject one thing? I had a conversation with Chief Gursky earlier this week about the center in Albany, and I asked that same question. I said, so what is it if someone were to leave a center against the center's advice? He goes, well, it's the same as when someone leaves a hospital against medical advice. People do it all the time. People leave the hospital. My husband's an employee of the hospital. People leave the hospital against medical advice and they sign themselves out or don't and just leave. He said the same thing could happen. The state they do request that you stay, but you can't keep them against their will there. And so what I think we were discussing is, in the same way as Chief Piercy said, in the same way a person would leave a hospital against medical advice, a person can leave a center against their counsel, against their advice. They can't be kept against their will. And so precautionary, I would like to see that the location of the center be in such, if someone were to leave, they'd have a little bit of distance between them and where they could encounter children or young families. And having that distance, 1,000 feet or whatever it may be, just gives us a little bit of a cushion in which, if there is a need to have police arrive, or if there's a need for medical attention to said person, if they leave and then realize they need medical attention, it's a little bit of a buffer zone for children and family. So that's why I'm more comfortable having that buffer zone be around libraries and parks, giving the individual that leaves against advice, or families that are in the area, if someone were to leave against advice of the service center, a little bit of a cushion to either get the help they need or be out of the area before they have interactions with young children.
Do we know from existing psilocybin service centers in Oregon how often that is a problem?
There's not enough, according to Chief Gursky, our last conversation, there just aren't enough, there's just not enough information out yet in regards to, and the Albany one, I think, is.
So, I mean, I think all of this is a moot point. I don't think anyone's gonna open a psilocybin service center in Oregon, but here we are, in Philomath, but here we are.
There's only 25 open in the
Right.
entire state, and some of them are failing. I just looked up the length. While the maximum session time is 6 hours, some individuals may be impaired for longer, so some sessions could exceed this time by several hours, depending on your body's metabolism, your age, and health factors. And when I first studied this, it said if it's a bad trip, you have good trips and bad trips. And if you're in a bad trip, it often will last much longer. And if we're going to close, I think we're putting people that aren't ready to be out on their own.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused because it feels like we're saying that we do not want these people out in the community under the influence. So we're wanting them away from parks, away from libraries. We will shut them out of the building at 10 p.m. though, even if they're still, like, I think we can do either way. I just think we need some consistency.
I think we need to not put hours on the
because
facility for the safety of the
right.
clients.
And I think I'll make one final point. I do think we need to remember that this is for if the voters decide that they do want to allow psilocybin service centers in Philomath. And so I think to the point that the constituent that talked to you was making, I would ask if that constituent, they said they were not comfortable with their kids walking in front of it. I think that means they should vote for the ban.
Right.
But if their neighbors decide that they do not want to ban, then I think we have to honor that by allowing it in most places, by allowing it in to honor the will of the voters in place. So I guess that's where I struggle a little bit with it, because it's like I hear that person's concern. That's why we're sending it to them on their ballot. Vote yes, I guess it would be. Vote for the ban. And if enough of their neighbors vote yes on the ban, that's great. They don't have to worry about it. But I guess that's why I'm wrestling with this a little bit. I personally don't really think we need psilocybin in Philomath necessarily, but I am a big believer that if the voters say they do, we have to follow through with that and allow it to happen. So I guess that's just where I get stuck on a little bit of the park and library thing. It's like, I think schools are kind of a no-brainer. Those are like built exclusively for children. And same with like preschools or, care facilities, whatever it wants to say, that predominantly serves children. But I guess I would also just almost want to see like a map of the city of all the red zones. Then if you draw a 1,000-foot radius around the library and around every park and around every residential area. And like, I guess I would just be curious how many commercial or heavy industrial properties are left if we added all of that in there, and how different would that be from a ban, I guess, is the thought process I'm going through.
Well, it seems to me that, yes, schools are definitely built for children. But also, if something happens on school grounds, there are so many people around that you're instantly protected. All you have to do is go and stand outside of a school for a while. In about 10 minutes, someone will ask you that. But in a park, it's a different situation. You don't have that help accessible. And it seems to me a small concession to make to help ensure the safety of the community. And, I don't think that we have a shortage of heavier light industrial land, which is nowhere near parks or schools. So, I mean, you could be right. In the city of Lake Oswego, there was basically nowhere. But I don't think that would be true in Councilor Andrade.
So I'd be willing to remove the hours on the hours of operation on there. That said, I think that I'm sure there are probably rules in place and like precautions, and also like just to be on the safe side, precautionarily. Sure, let's take those out. As for the adding parks and libraries to the list, like I really don't think that that is going to improve safety in any way. We already have, I could tell from a quick look on the municipal code, I'm pretty sure we don't have any time, place, manner restrictions for liquor stores or bars. Is that correct? Because looking on here, all I see is permit for dispensing or consuming in a public place. And then that just says to apply to the chief of police and that the council may, the council has the final decision. Is that correct, city manager?
Well, the state mandates hours of operation of those through the LLCC license.
Yes.
So they have
What
hours of operation,
distances?
but the city doesn't.
Not hours of operation, distance.
Distance for,
There's no time, place, manner. Exactly. And my point is that alcohol is way more available. It's way easier to get it. And we don't have any restrictions on that. So and people drunk drive all the time. And people get hurt, and it sucks. Like, it shouldn't happen, and yet we still don't have. So this feels like a really silly conversation, to be honest. Just because we have something that is way more addictive and causes way more harm and death, and we're treating psilocybin like it's everywhere and everyone's addicted, and it just, I don't think we need to add parks and libraries to this, especially because it's not built solely for children. It's not built solely for people whom, I don't know, I just feel silly.
No, it's okay.
You mentioned schools were built for children. I would argue that playgrounds and park are built for children. We don't see adults there. So I understand the addition of parks because of the playgrounds.
Counselor McNeilson.
That's right. I definitely understand Councillor Andrade's proposal about, comparing alcohol and its distribution and the harm that it does to many families, individuals, and accidents. I concur. That's true. It's a horrible thing, but I think in my passion to protect our most vulnerable part of society, our most vulnerable people in society are our children. And I feel responsible as an adult, as a woman, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a community member, as a former teacher. All those pieces of me tell me I need to protect and preserve the sanctity and safety of children, even if there's a minute chance that someone could be injured or hurt or disturbed or whatever it may be. That if I can avoid that, I will do it at all means. And if that means that putting 1,000-foot ban around libraries and parks with playgrounds where children go to play, I would do it, because one incident is valued enough to avoid if we can. And I think there are, and as far as the time issue of taking the hours off of this, hours of operation, I feel more comfortable consulting like our chief of police in regards to how that would react, how that would affect the police department in our city if we were to change the hours of operation and the opening hours. I'd like his opinion on that, and maybe what other cities are doing in regards to hours of operation. I'd like a little bit more information on that before I made a really informed decision on this piece personally.
Thank you. I guess on the hours of operation thing,
Warren, if you don't mind, we do have a motion on the table about.
well, yes, that's what I was gonna, I think.
I mean,
I was
it's
gonna
intertied, but let's try to stay focused on that.
Yeah, I was just thinking I may amend the motion as kind of a joint thing, but I guess this is part of it is just, is there a way to, could we we phrase it somehow saying that like they cannot take on new clients after a certain, so like they cannot in like I don't know the right be. I hope I'm kind of making sense because like I agree. I don't think we want someone walking in at 2 a.m. to start. But yeah, if you started at 2 p.m. and or you after work you went in at 5 p.m. and you still need some supervision to protect the public and keep everyone safe at 11 p.m. Like I guess is there a way we could work that into it? Because I feel like that's
Yeah,
it sounds like what
just
we're all
talking
kind of
about
working
normal hours
towards.
of operation even, I think would it.
Right. I mean, I guess I even think about it like a restaurant. I mean, I know any service staff that's listening to this, I'm sorry, but like if you walk into a restaurant 20 minutes before they close, they'll still sit you down. But then when they close, they're not gonna be like, all right, out. Like they'll wait for you to finish eating, and then they'll clean up, and then And I'm not encouraging people to do that, but but it's the same idea, right? Of just like closing time more means like, all right, doors are locked, you can't come in. But like if you're in here, we'll let you finish up. We'll let you kind of do your business and then leave. So I guess I'm thinking about it more that way. Like I don't think we need people starting really late, but finishing I don't see as much of a problem with.
Yeah, so you can go with kind of normal hours of operation if you wanted to put that in there. I think there's other ways to try to get there. I don't know if this is helpful or not. I think one of the conversations that I had with Ashley when we were looking at this and discussing this was a lot of, I don't know a lot. She has some clients, other cities that are more of a destination place, resort type towns. I won't mention names, but areas that are looking at psilocybin as a tourist draw to draw people there, where they intentionally want people to go and stay overnight. That it's like an attraction, right? To go, spend the night, have your psilocybin deal, and then get up the next morning, so you don't have to pay for a hotel. Like it's built for that dynamic to lure people to the community for that overnight experience, and that's where she was trying to hit us.
Right.
If we don't want this to be like an attraction for people out of the community to come to Philomath to have a psilocybin trip, then we should put these time regulations, and you kind of do normal business hours 8 to 5. Well, and that's a service, so we can expand it. So that's why I kind of extended to the late evening. But the intent was to not do the overnights.
Right. Okay.
If you don't do the overnights, then that would be a consideration. Is that we may, again, if we were to get somebody down, they may actually target people as that with their promotion as come to Philomath, stay overnight, whatever. So if we are okay with that and we've taken the precautions that we think that we need, where that's okay, then we can just remove the time, place, manner restrictions altogether. If not, then I'd say leave them in there. The other distinction to make just a little bit is it's tough in the ordinance because we are lumping the service centers with the manufacturing. This might be another area where it might help to separate those out, where your manufacturing
Totally.
would have some normal operation hours, and maybe 10 o'clock at night is a little late for that. And so maybe we separate out service center hours, or we just specify the manufacturing hours.
Excuse me.
So I'm open to any of that, or just leave it like it is. We can check with Ashley and kind of get some information back. But I really think anything that you do with hours of operation is going to be what you're trying to prevent, what you're trying to limit, what you're trying to discourage, and knowing that there is not going to be a full safe, right? I mean, we're not going to be out there policing this day in and day out, right? And so there's extenuating circumstances, somebody's having a bad trip and they've got to stay beyond business hours. The police department I don't know what those procedures are, but it's way deeper down than what this is doing at the ordinance level. Okay. So we can come up with, we've got business licensing that has to happen at the city level. We could add some language into that business licensing for these facilities. So there may be some other constraints we could do that are kind of up and beyond these general time, place, manner restrictions, but just a few thoughts.
That's a
Can I amend the motion to keep what Councilor Nielsen said about, or no, it was you, sorry, keep what Councilor Kazi said about parks and libraries, but then on page 3, line 15, add the
I like that.
Clarify, so you're amending the motion to add item number 5?
Yes, because I guess, just to, I
It's
guess,
a separate item, is that
well,
I
can I
would
speak to
recommend
it? Or sorry.
announcing one motion at a time. They're different sections.
then I will on the motion I made.
Can I just say one thing? Well, but then I feel like there was well, I guess the reason I was putting them together is because what we talked about, they both feel like community protection to me. We don't want people still under the influence in public areas. So I guess just for the council, I'm not trying to put in random things. I think it made sense to me.
I see where you're
yeah.
going. I think we can get there.
Okay,
Can you
okay.
just restate it? Now let's get a second, and then because I think we can do what you're.
Okay,
Can you
okay.
Restate it.
So my motion was to add under page 4, item A, language that Councilor Cosby suggested as number 5, and on page 3, item C, line 15, read hours of operation, normal operating hours for service centers and manufacturing sites must be no earlier than 8 a.m. and no later than 10 p.m. on the same day.
But I think you're amending my motion.
Yes, yeah, correct.
By adding that language to it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by amendment by Councilor Warren, second by Councilor Nielsen. Any further discussion? Councilor Andrade.
I also take the safety of our community members I find safety of our community members to be really, really important. And in this, the way that, from our first election, our community members had voted to allow this to happen. So I don't. Anyway, I'm fine with taking it back to the voters again, but I'm still treating this like the community has decided to allow this to happen. Just to clarify. On top of it, I wanted to say that if alcohol causes so much more damage than so many other concerns that people might have about cannabis, about psilocybin, far more damage. And if we don't have anything in place for them, why are we taking...
Point of order. I believe the discussion of alcohol is unrelated. If we want to impose time and manner restrictions on alcohol, we should do so.
I would like to challenge that and say that I'm not suggesting that. I am trying to say that, if... What is it about psilocybin that makes it so much scarier to people? Why is it that, I don't get it. It's not. It really isn't. What I'm trying to get at is that it sometimes feels like there are certain associations that people might have with certain substances, legal or illegal, depending on certain, things, depending on what you're talking about. And I really want to know, sorry, it's been a long day. I'll just leave it at, if never mind.
Councilor Crocker.
One of my big concerns for the safety is my lack of trust in a person that's 22 years old that's had 40 hours of training. They're the ones deciding the dosage for each person, and they're the ones sitting with them through the whole thing. And I would not go and have a surgery by somebody that had no medical training and had 40 hours of training. 40 hours is 1 week. That's my big thing. And that, you know, the trips that may last longer, if they don't give them the right dosage, that's where we're going to have problems. If they are a professional that understands weight and metabolism and all the stuff, they might not ever go longer than 6 hours. I don't know. But it says that some trips last much longer, and especially bad ones. One of my concerns, and I realize it's a Schedule I substance by the federal government, and alcohol is not. I totally agree with you that alcohol causes a lot of trouble. But because this has been labeled a Schedule I that has possible addiction and bad results, until that's changed, I don't feel like it's something I want to support without medical care. Now, if this had a medical component where a doctor or a counselor, even with medical, training, wanted to help somebody with this way, that would be a whole different thing in my book. But it's not. And to have some 22-year-old with 40 hours of training making all these decisions makes me very nervous.
Thank you. I would like to call the question and take a vote. All those in favor?
I just want to make sure I'm voting what it really, could you read the changes that we have, that we're making to this, so that I understand what what I'm voting for? Sorry, apologize.
So the amendment is to Part A on page 4 to add item 5, which is to within 1,000 feet of a public library or public park, to add the word normal before operating hours under 9.30.080 Part C.
Thank you, Crystal, I appreciate it. Sorry for the trouble.
So to clarify, this is the amendment we are voting on.
Correct.
Okay, all of those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Andrade voting no.
And so now this is the amendment to the ordinance.
The original.
The original motion, I thought you amended the motion.
Right, so now we're voting on the motion as amended.
Yes. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion now as amended, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-1. Counselor Andrade.
How do you know I didn't
I'm sorry.
abstain?
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yes.
The first vote was for Councilman Warren's amending motion to add the word normal. And the second vote that you just took was for the full amended motion of the 2 seconds.
Right.
So, yeah.
Like, what have we done?
The next item on the agenda is reports of boards, commissions.
We're not, no, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Take a vote. Are there,
And then we have to go to, are we doing 888 first or?
So what? I'm sorry. I thought.
have you got the amendment that was made? Yeah, that's where we're at. You're at the same spot we are.
Okay.
So are there any other recommended amendments to the ordinance
Of 887.
of 887? When you're ready, we can call for a vote, or call for a roll call vote.
Or 887.
or ordinance 887.
Teresa Nielsen,
Yes.
Jessica Andrade,
No.
Ruth Causey,
Yes.
Diane Crocker,
Yes.
Christopher McMorrin,
Yes.
Brings us to ordinance 888.
Yeah, and if I will on 887, just real quick, because it's not unanimous, that'll come back for a second vote. We kind of anticipated it would not be unanimous just because we've heard opinions coming into it. So the second vote will be taken at the second meeting of November, which is the 25th. So you'll see this same ordinance on the 25th. I will double check on the marijuana wording. So versus marijuana. But otherwise,
We really incorporate the changes or no?
yes, with the new changes. Yep. So you'll see it with these changes for the second reading. Yes,
What happens if we're not unanimous at that time?
it's majority at that point. Yep. So, all right. Ordinance 888.
888. Are there any suggested changes, Counselor Andrade?
If I can read it, that's first. Or read the title.
I was gonna say, wait a minute.
Let me just read the title. City of Philomath Ordinance 888, an ordinance of the City of Philomath declaring a ban on psilocybin product manufacturing and psilocybin service centers and referring the ban to the voters.
Thank you. Counselor Andrade.
So for the, can I talk about the ballot title information, or are we still, because it's together, right?
Yeah, it's together.
Okay, cool. And not just the title, the ballot information. So, going back to that same sentence that I said should be a period instead of a comma.
Can you, I'm sorry, refresh my memory?
Yes, sorry, it's the very bottom of the page, the first sentence, if denied. Psilocybin-related businesses would be allowed to operate within the city. And then my motion is to have it read, if denied, psilocybin-related businesses would be allowed to operate within the city with reasonable time, place, and manner regulations that would immediately become operative as further provided in Ordinance 887.
And there's a period after 887, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you read that one, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Would you read it one more time for me,
Of
please?
course. So, to clarify, it's adding with after the first, or after the comma from city, and then adding that between regulations and would. So, if denied, psilocybin-related businesses would be allowed to operate within the city with reasonable time, place, and manner regulations that would immediately become operative as further provided in Ordinance 887.
Period.
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 Is it Scrivener's?
Yes.
As long as we're there.
So I guess replacing.
Do I have a,
Correct.
do I have a second?
Sure. I'll second that.
I beat you.
Whatever.
And yeah, just to,
No, I was saying it. Yes.
and
Motion by Counselor Andrade, second by Counselor.
And just to repeat what I said before, it just kind of helps connect the two ideas for those who might not know what time, place, manner regulations would be, because I wouldn't understand what that was, and just read it.
Counselor Crocker.
I would like to suggest that we add the word processing to the title, because in my study, I've seen growing or manufacturing, processing, and the service center. And if we don't add processing, we could have a processing plant in here legally, I think, with a ban.
Is,
An ordinance of the City of Philomath declaring a ban on psilocybin product manufacturing, processing, comma, and manufacturing, comma, processing, comma, and psilocybin service center.
From ordinance 888.
At the top, the title.
Is that in any of the documents in the state mandate that talks about properties?
I've seen it several places,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I don't know that I can tell you about.
That's okay. I just was wondering if you'd read it on other state documents.
And they talk about it, so it seems like it would be wise to add that.
That's a motion?
No, we have a motion on the table. We have a motion, so I don't, are you saying to do that, so then we would have to amend this motion?
No, I was in addition.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I thought you were speaking to the.
Okay, any other comments? I'd like to address the motion on the table. Are there any other comments to Councilor Andrade's motion? I will say that I'm voting against this purely because I don't think it's materially different than the wording that is already present. With that in mind, yes.
Just to push back just a little, it might not materially, but I think that for the average person, it could make a difference. Again, like I said, I wouldn't have understood that otherwise, and I think that the rephrasing of it might be more to people. I don't know.
I disagree.
Okay.
In any case, all those in favor of the motion as stated,
Aye.
please raise your hand and say aye. All those opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries 4-1. Councilor Causey dissent. Okay,
Let me say it again.
yes, please.
I'm so sorry. An ordinance of the City of Philomath, I would like to change the title of the ordinance.
This is a motion.
This is a motion to add the word processing into the sentence so that we are covering all of the basis of the handling of psilocybin, which would include growing it, processing it, and then handing it out.
I feel like we should ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not being the lawyer, but all of the legal language I've seen about this, it only differentiates between urban centers and manufacturing. I can talk from a land use standpoint, processing, we would qualify as manufacturing. I don't know that we draw a clear distinction between the two. And my presumption would be that it's, if you're going to allow, if you're going to ban manufacturing and somebody would come and say, hey, we just want to do processing, I would say your processing process is manufacturing.
Well, if they get it from another city and come in and dry it and separate it into dosages, that processing.
From a land use standpoint, that's the
Growing
manufacturing process.
Okay.
Yes,
I feel like it's similar to like dirt road brewing. They don't grow the barley or the wheat or whatever in the city. They get it shipped in from other places and then they brew it into beer. So I feel like it's a similar, like, is that processing or is that manufacturing? You know, we count it as the same. I mean, and not, I'm talking about clearly not the actual tap house. That would be retail, but yeah. I just feel like there's a lot, like, you know, restaurants don't go slaughter the cow out back and then turn it into ground beef. They're, yeah, sorry, I'm getting off track, but.
You talk about a council meeting.
Well, and on the similar note, I think Marquette District would be a better example.
Sure.
Where they're not even siphoning any of that, they're literally adding flavoring,
Sure.
packaging. Going, I mean, so I would clear that very clearly by processing. We wouldn't allow them to have that processing plant in the commercial district, if not but for their commercial retail space up front.
Sure.
So from a land use standpoint, there's definitely probably provisions there, but I would say from a land use standpoint, if somebody came in and said, we're just processing psilocybin and there was a ban on manufacturing, we would say processing psilocybin is a manufactured process. That's all I can say from a land use, but we can, again, I can double check with Ashley and get her input. I'm happy to provide that report back at the next meeting. If we don't want to make the change, or you do make the change, either way, I can get legals.
I'd be happy to have that, and if she says it's not needed, I'm fine, but it doesn't seem like it's a big deal to add one word either.
So I think you would have to change it through the document, though. It wouldn't just be the title, you'd have to change everything. If you're going to do it, to be consistent.
And in 888 or 887 too, right?
Right, I think you would have to change the language to be.
I agree with your intent. I just want to get that input from someone who knows more than us about whether it's, whether that would actually achieve the intent or if we need to, but yeah.
Are we okay leaving it for now?
Yeah.
We need to add it at the end of the month, so before the final vote, we can do that. Okay.
Do we need to vote to table this?
My preference would be we still get a first vote tonight as it is, and knowing that more than likely, I don't want to put votes in anybody's.
Yes.
Okay, what happens if it does?
If it does pass tonight, then it will be as is. So somebody vote no. At least one.
Oh, Diane's.
Selfless.
And it's just it's a timing issue, right? And we've done it to ourselves a lot. Or I've done it to you. I'll take that on my shoulders, so.
No, I think we did it ourselves.
Are there any other amendments? If you're ready for a roll call vote, you can call for that.
All right, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Teresa Nielsen,
Yes.
Jessica Andrade,
No.
Lou Causey,
Yes.
Diane Rucker,
No.
Christopher McMorrin.
Yes.
Fine, we have to bring it back.
So that was not a unanimous vote, so this will come back to you on the 25th of November for a second. Recess.
Oh, we could.
I'm trying to- we need a brief recess. I got 3 minutes recess.
It'll be good to stand up.
Community management report.
on the agenda
Yep.
Yep.
is the board.
So this is Ruth's last city council meeting with you all. She has served you and the city faithfully for many, many years. And I hope that you will all be able to join us tomorrow for her retirement celebration. Well deserved, well earned. I tried having a more serious conversation with her earlier this morning. Did not go well for me. Got a little emotional, so we put a pin in it and quickly changed the topic. We're gonna hold all that for tomorrow. But anyway, I just wanted to express appreciation to her and want to make sure the council had an opportunity to do it as well. So if any of you would like to make comments, now would be an appropriate time.
Be careful.
You're very special.
Would say that I would like to say, and I have some other thoughts for tomorrow, but this council in particular, you've made the last 2 years a distinct pleasure. I think that I looked back through the records and I've had 36 counselors and 6 mayors, and working with this group of counselors the last 2 years has been a great way to go out. So, thank you.
Thank you.
One thing too.
You may.
I feel like I always knew Ruth was really good at her job, and the city was very lucky to have her. But then when I got onto the council and I'd go to like LOC meetings or I'd talk to people from other cities, I would tell them I'm from Philomath, and they'd be like, "You have Ruth Post, don't you?" Like, seriously, that came up multiple times before they knew anything else. So I think that speaks volumes to how lucky we are to have you. And I hope to still see you walking past my parents' house.
When I go to conferences and hear city councils treat their reporters, I've always considered myself very blessed to be from this town.
More tomorrow, but mark your last meeting.
Okay.
How can we start the meeting?
Thank you. Can I report on that?
Next item agenda, unless anybody feels differently, is report of boards, commissions, committees, and liaison. And I would just like to make one comment. I know that many of you were at to hear the comments from the director of the contracting and ODOT. They loved working with Philomath. It was a wonderful project, and they were just blown. It was really fun.
Yes. I will say I hear a lot about that from contractors, and maybe they're just kissing up to us, but but I think even with like our graphic designers and everything, that is a common theme, is that they really like working with this city and tier committees and our staff, and they appreciate our kind of ability to work together and get things done. So I think, I heard it the first 1 or 2 times. I was like, oh, that's nice. But I think you're right. At this point, it is a trend. So it's something to be proud
All
of.
right, let's keep up the good work. Anyone else on reports? Okay.
I guess I'll just say, like, I wasn't able to attend ribbon cutting or ribbon cutting for the Veterans Park, but I did hear a lot about the Veterans Park ribbon cutting and Veterans Day event, and so many good things. I heard it was really well attended, and yeah, nothing but glowing reviews. So that's exciting.
It was so
I wish I could.
impressive. There were, I think, 25 plus Vietnam veterans there.
27.
27.
27 was the.
I stand corrected.
Well, 25 plus.
Is it 25 plus?
Yeah.
Men who received awards.
Yeah.
Medals, well deserved medals. It was a fun event. A long time standing, but it was funny. Okay, did you have something, Council?
I was just gonna say, yes, it was well done, and thank you to everybody that worked on it. And the streetscapes, I'm hearing from public that they they love it, they think it's just beautiful, but the same people were giving me a lot of comments prior about when it would ever get done. And I said, we told you it was a 2-year project, but they're very happy now.
Councilor Nielsen?
So do we have new decorations to go on our, this holiday season or for?
Yeah, we have brackets being made currently to hold them. It won't be every light post. We're gonna be adding on, buying more decorations every year and chipping away and adding more brackets. But we will have some of this year. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Great. I would like to add to a future agenda. I know one of the counselors mentioned how difficult our Facebook recordings are. And I wonder if at some point we can discuss alternatives to our current AV arrangement.
So on that note, actually, I have a vague memory of staff saying something about potentially, was it multiple cameras or like an additional camera, or am I misremembering that? Was that just
Yeah,
wishful thinking?
there's a lot of different options, and I mean.
No, I meant like you had been talking about like getting one, or maybe that was just the speaker, or I'm probably just misremembering.
I don't remember. And there's a lot of different options. I mean, we can talk about it at a future meeting. Absolutely.
Okay. With that, I'd like to move on to the management report. Are there any questions on management? On administration, you say met with school superintendent and enterprise zone manager about needed resolution required by new state rules. What is that?
All about it. December meeting. It's very specific to the enterprise zones. The city has an enterprise zone over the entire city, allows businesses to be able to not have to pay property taxes the first 3 years, guaranteed up to 5 years. There's some new state laws that govern how that affects our schools. And with those new rules, there needs to come a resolution from the school district and the city on some approval of procedures. And so the school district has looked at those. I believe their board either already looked at them or is looking at them, maybe even this week. And once the school board has looked at them and approved them and signed, then they'll come to the city council for review and approval. It's not a lot of gray area. This is kind of one of those things that you ask, you get understanding, and then you rubber stamp it. We're required to do it by these new state laws, and not a lot of vanilla or cherry in there. You just gonna have to do it due to the new regulations. So I'll prepare a agenda item summary. We're working with Christopher over at the Corvallis-Benton County Economic Development District, and he's been heading this effort up with the county commissioners, city council, and the school district. It eventually goes to we're supposed to get it to the county commissioners by the end of the year. And so that's the time crunch, is trying to get it to school, city, and then in front of the commissioners.
So to follow up on that, I think that's just a typo then about this coming to the council February 25th.
November 25th, sorry. I get my
No,
calendar
that's
in
totally
November.
fine. I just wanted to,
I just wanted to say my massive kudos to Public Works and my anger to whoever graffitied the heck out of the park. That was tough to see.
yeah.
So I'm very grateful that it got cleaned up, but
Yeah, and I provided the picture just because I wanted you to be aware, right? I mean,
Yeah.
again, not to focus on the gloom and doom. I think sometimes we come to meetings and we talk about the good things happening. There's some knuckleheads in our community that don't play by the rules, and this wasn't one occurrence. This was a second occurrence. After we got it all cleaned up, they came back a second day and tagged multiple things again, the bathrooms and more. So there is an open police report on it right now. They're doing an investigation. I won't say a whole lot more about the details of the investigation, but it's, it's locals. This isn't somebody that drove over from the coast and tagged our park. It's local individuals that live in our community and have too much time on their hands and too much, well, not a lot of artistic talent, but anyway, just wanted the council to be aware that these things are happening. This is the stuff that Public Works and police are dealing with on a regular basis. All too regular, unfortunately, at City Park. We do have restrooms at City Park shut down at times right now in order to try to deter some of this that's going on, but it's temporary measures right now.
Do we have any cameras in place?
We do. They don't have a great
Update on that.
line of sight. Yeah. Do you have
I did
a-
talk to the chief this morning about just in general that conversation. And we are going to be looking at that. We haven't had a chance to talk to Chris about it, but looking at upgrading. We do have cameras. We've had, they pull footage from them. They pulled it for several other things. So we anticipate they'll be able to pull something, but I do think that we could probably use some more. It's a large area. So we'll, that'll be coming at a future discussion sometime or update.
Councilor Crocker?
Have you seen more of this since we don't have someone living on the land anymore? Or is it about the same?
This is the worst, one-time deal that I've seen since I've been here, but it's not uncommon for that park to get tagged, even when we had people staying there. So it's, again, this is the worst, but I wouldn't attribute it to the fact that we don't have an on-site caretaker. I think that would be a misstatement.
And I would also like to point out Connor Ringwald, who is one of our new police officers, is a Philomath graduate. So it's really great to have him back.
from the esteemed PHS class of 2017.
Councilor Andrade?
I'm curious to know more about these cameras and where they're placed, and are there other things associated with them, sound, or do you have to, how it's connected? Is it connected, or do you have to go there to download it, similar to how you do the current digital signs and stuff? Like what?
No, they're the cameras we have now are connected, and they're done through firewall protections. Our IT has helped us with all the installation and management of the cameras that we do now. Yeah.
Can we get more of that information when we have that discussion?
Yeah, I don't know how much we would discuss. I think we'd probably just update on what direction we're going to take, but we're going to look at some options.
Okay.
Yeah. But definitely, can have discussion about them, or at least update you on them.
Councilor McMorrin?
On this note, I know at one point, I don't remember if it was in a Public Works Committee meeting or City Council, but we had talked about the bathrooms at Mary's River Park and how they're closed for much of. We talked at some point about how there's no cameras there, and if that's something that could be added. So I guess I would just maybe ask if that can be included and
We're
if
gonna have
not,
kind of a holistic
Okay.
city.
And then
The talk I had with the chief was having just a holistic where we're at.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second piece of that, I don't know if this falls under that, but thought there was some bill in the legislature at some point to allow discussions of like physical safety plans to be done during executive session. I just wonder if that might be worth doing so we can talk a little more in depth about the like security systems and stuff without disclosing exactly where cameras are pointing and that kind of stuff.
Because I do have
But-
concerns and would like to
Right.
hear more about it.
And I don't know if that was specific to like, I think the idea was it was supposed to be more specific to like the safety of elected officials. It's like if the school board is receiving threats, what the plan is, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if this would fall under it, but I think it might be worth checking.
On that, but yes, it's not exactly a discussion that you want to have it's
Yeah,
in a public forum discussing exactly what we're going to put where and what we have, it does fall within that, but yes, we'll look at that.
Thank you.
Blind spot is exactly right
Right.
here.
The cameras are
For your
on.
map.
5 a.m. Yeah.
The security cameras are a deterrent more than anything, and you can capture stuff on there at times, but mostly they act as a deterrent for folks. And even when you've got a good view of somebody walking across, you can get date and time, but it's tough to make out a face or it just gets really, really challenging. You can get the color of the coat, color of the pants, sometimes color of the shoes, but again, when you're looking at it, 10 hours later, 12 hours later, so it's helpful, but they're not the silver bullet. Having the security cameras is helpful, but it's not going to solve the issue of just a lack of respect for public property and public parks in general. So that might take some community service hours.
Yeah, right.
All right, if there are no other questions, I believe that brings us to. Thank you. Thank you.
Got a November 25th and a early December.
Hold on a second, just so you know, Crystal is